06060
9 minutes before 8, while we wait on the Foreign Secretary, it gives me the opportunity to get more of you done to have your say about the Rwanda deal, whether it is something that shames the nation. John in Guildford, what do you say to it, John? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I just wonder, the bishops say it's shame. I'd like to know how many refugees these bishops have taken into their great big houses that they have. Lambeth Palace is enormous. There's a big house in Guildford where the Bishop of Guildford doesn't live. I don't know where the Archbishop of York lives, but I suspect he's got a big palace. And the bishops have all got big palaces. They're called bishops' palaces.
They are.
How many refugees have all the bishops taken?
Well, famously, the Archbishop of Canterbury did take in a family. They have subsequently left now that they have successfully applied for citizenship or asylum here, whatever it might be. So he has put his money where his mouth is to a degree. But I see the point you're making. You don't have a lot of truck, then, with the Church's stance on this.
Not really. It's so easy for somebody to say it's wrong without saying what would be right.
John, thank you. Look after yourself. Atik in Windsor. Is it wrong, Atik? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I do believe it's wrong. Only because, I like to point out, when you mentioned earlier we've got no space for all these migrants coming across the river.
The channel.
Yet we've got... Yeah, the channel. But yet we've got so much space for all the Ukrainians that we're taking in. Now, for me, they're both refugees of war. The Ukrainians are.
Well, I don't know that they all are, of course. I know the lawyers would have us believe that these are all seeking refuge from persecution and torture. And I'm sorry, I'm sure some are. I don't doubt it for a moment. But I'm simply not going to buy the idea that every single one of those people, some of whom decide to throw their papers in the drink, that all of them are fleeing persecution. I just don't buy it. I'm sorry, Atik.
No, that's fair. That's your assumption. That's absolutely fine. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
But the facts speak that if those coming through the channel are from Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya and Syria, the wars that we created, right?
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to look after those people because we invaded those countries to help those people, right? Now, the Ukrainian war, we have nothing to do with.
Sorry, when did we invade Albania?
And under that same pretext that you said, these migrants have got closer countries to go to.
But when did we invade Somalia? When did we invade Ethiopia? When did we invade Albania? Your argument doesn't hold water.
They're not all the people coming across are not Somalians, mate.
No, but many are Somalians, many are Albanians.
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay, if you're not going to accept it, that's it. I'm sorry. That's goodbye. Either you have to accept that some are from Somalia. I'm not saying they're all Somalians, and many do come from Afghanistan and Iraq. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
The majority are coming from war-torn countries.
We don't know that.
That's why...
We don't know that. How do you know that?
Sorry, when you're coming from Afghanistan, why are you coming from Afghanistan?
How do you know that the majority are coming from war-torn? And the reality is you don't know that the majority are coming.
How do you know then? So how do you know that they're not then? What's the reality of you knowing it then?
All I go by are the figures that were produced for the nationalities of last year, and I appreciate we're 6 months into this year, the nationalities of last year, and it's definitely not the majority are coming from war-torn countries.
So who were the majority on the list of last year, for my information, please?
The biggest country was Afghanistan. Yeah, of course it was.
Right, you are. That's what I'm looking to hear.
Hold on. Then when you add in other nations...
Don't go... Let's not go to then add in.
No.
What did we do for all those Afghanistan people then? What did we do for them?
What do you mean, what did we... Well, there's the ARAP programme for those who were working with the British forces. But when you add in the other nations, just because one country is the largest single country... I don't know if you know how maths works, but then if you add, say, the third, fourth, and fifth...
Because
I know
the ones
precisely
that
what I'm talking about.
we left them on a plane. We left them. We brought dogs back instead of humans, mate. That was what happened in Afghanistan.
Yes, that was the ARAP, the Afghanistan Repatriation and Assistance Programme, which didn't get anything like enough Afghan people out. I totally agree with you on that. But they're not. They can't even leave the country now.
Yeah, now, because we've just left them there, right? They helped us out.
Okay. I think we've explored those points well enough, Atik. I'm grateful. Have yourself a good day. Thank you. Let's get other people involved. James in Tower Hamlets. James, you're on the radio. Let's come back to the idea of it shaming the nation.
Well, I don't think it does shame the nation. I think it shames the nation if we don't have any control over our borders. We've got to have control over our borders. Otherwise, these people, as the man from Kent was saying, that's going to enter the country and run away. If they were genuine refugees, they would be able to demonstrate that they were. If half of them are trying to evade the police, they're not.
Right.
And I just think, why don't we just send all the bishops to Rwanda and then nationalise the Church of England and use all the money from all their lands to actually fund this thing?
Okay. I think we'll put that down as an idea. James, thank you. See if other people have support for it. I don't know how many will. You talk about the bishops and the Archbishop. Of course, the premier one is the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Alexander's there now. Alexander, what are you going to tell me? Good morning. Do you think it shames the nation?
Well, I didn't really want to talk about that, but what I would like to ask is, has anybody ever given any thought to chartering ships under the cruise ships under the British flag, anchoring them in the Channel, picking these people up and processing them, and if they haven't got any passports, etc., then we're entitled to send them back, surely?
It was an idea that was looked at, and certainly during the pandemic, because of the fact that those cruise ships were not in operation. Although it was looked at, for whatever reason, the government decided that they wouldn't proceed with that. But it was one way that they could have deployed it. So that's something that was an idea, Alexander, but I don't think is going to work. Alexander, I have to say farewell now because I'm delighted our campaign. We are joined by the Foreign Secretary. This, of course, as we discussed already this hour, the EU seeming to pave the way for legal action against the UK after the UK published sweeping powers to allow ministers to unilaterally override large parts of the Brexit deal on Northern Ireland. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss joins me now. How nervous are you that we are moving towards some kind of legal fight with the European Union? Good morning, Foreign Secretary.
Good morning. Well, first of all, the reason we're doing this is to protect the Belfast Good Friday Agreement and the political stability of Northern Ireland. We need to sort out these issues about East-West trade. We need to make sure the people of Northern Ireland can access the same tax benefits as the people of Great Britain. And our proposals, which we are putting forward in the bill and legislating on, make the EU no worse off. They continue to protect the single market. We are supplying the EU with commercial data about everything that crosses the Irish Sea. We've got enforcement to make sure nobody is violating the Green Channel and sending goods into the Republic of Ireland. So there simply is no reason, Nick, for the EU to take any action. This proposal, this legislation doesn't make them any worse off at all.
If it threatens, Foreign Secretary, the Belfast Agreement, why on earth did we put our pen to it? Why did we sign it so recently?
What we've seen over the past few years is the problems in Northern Ireland getting worse. I think initially we thought we could make it work. That simply hasn't happened. The effect of the bureaucracy, the customs bureaucracy for goods crossing the Irish Sea has meant that some companies have stopped trading. Other companies have seen a rise in their costs. We've seen the consequences. The Chancellor's recent spring statement, the people of Northern Ireland weren't able to benefit from the VAT cuts on solar panels. So what we've seen is it's simply not working. And if something isn't working, and it's causing political instability, it is the responsibility of the United Kingdom government to act. And my preference, Nick, has been to secure a negotiated agreement with the EU, but the reality is that they are saying that they won't change the text of the protocol. And these problems, whether it's on customs or on tax, are baked into the protocol itself. That's why the UK government is obliged to act.
It's interesting you use language such as baked in, Foreign Secretary. What happened to the oven-ready Brexit deal? It wasn't oven-ready at all, was it? That was a lie.
What has happened since the Northern Ireland Protocol was put in place, and if you remember, it was never intended to be set in stone. You know, it was a arrangement that was put in place to deal with the specific issues in Northern Ireland. what we have found since then is it's not working. And it's important to note that the protocol hasn't been fully implemented. We're currently in a standstill where a lot of the aspects of it haven't been implemented. It's not working. We need to fix it. There have been unintended consequences of the agreement that we need to deal with, and I'm being very upfront and honest with you about that.
And lastly, on this aspect, Foreign Secretary, does the blame lay wholly and exclusively with the European Union for this?
The situation in Northern Ireland has always been very delicate, and the Belfast Good Friday Agreement is based on compromise. It's based on dealing with tough issues in a rational, reasonable manner. And what we have seen over the past 18 months is a refusal by the EU to make any changes to this agreement. So I do think there's been an element of intransigence there, which has resulted in us having to legislate.
Can we look at other matters? We look at the deportation plans for people back to Rwanda. I'm sure you're aware that senior members of the Church of England, indeed all 25 bishops in the House of Lords, say that this is something that shames us as a nation. Are you part of a government then, senior member of the government, that shames the nation, Liz Truss?
I don't agree with that assessment at all. We are carrying out this policy to deal with the appalling people trafficking that is taking place, and those are the people that are immoral. It's people who are selling a future dream and meanwhile hurting people, causing them to lose their lives in the English Channel. Those are the people that are immoral, and that is why we are pursuing this policy of being able to take people to Rwanda for a safer future, whilst at the same time deterring the activities of these illegal people traffickers.
But the bishops say we should treat these individuals with compassion, fairness and justice, as we have for centuries. There's not a great deal of compassion or fairness if you're hoiking people out of their homes and putting them onto planes, is there?
We are treating people with fairness and compassion. We have an agreement with Rwanda for the safe passage of these people. They will be treated well in Rwanda. What we can't, though, do is have a reward for these people traffickers that simply incentivizes them to try and create more illegal immigration routes into the United Kingdom. And of course, when we've been through several legal challenges on this policy, of course it is it's a tough policy to enact, but it is important that we challenge the business model of these people traffickers, and that people travelling to Britain through legal migration routes have precedence. This is why we set up the points-based immigration system. People in Britain believe in a fair immigration system, not one run by illegal people traffickers.
Let me just ask you, we don't yet know how many people will be on this first flight. It's thought it could be as few as 7. I understand the cost of the flight to be somewhere in the region of £350,000 to £400,000. That's around £70,000 a head. Is that value for money, Foreign Secretary?
What you've got to look at, Nick, is the overall cost of illegal immigration and the cost to human life, the cost to the British economy of these illegal immigration routes. That's what you've got to weigh up the costs against. And of course, it's taking time to get this policy going. We need to make sure that if people aren't on today's flight, they are on subsequent flights. But fundamentally, we need to break the business model, and this is why we have to take this action.
Lastly, you might be aware that today marks the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict. Given the background that there was with the military exercises in Iraq and Afghanistan, is it fair to say that that possibly was one of the last virtuous wars in which the country was involved, the Falklands War?
It was, of course, a very important principle for the UK to defend the sovereignty and self-determination of the Falkland Islands, and we continue to do that. And we are continuing to protect all of our overseas territories.
You see the point I'm driving at.
So that never happens again.
Well, no, but there was no dodgy dossier. There was no 45 minutes of preparedness about the Falklands. There was no evacuation from Kabul. It was, if one can ever have a virtuous war, I'm just wondering, was it the last virtuous war the United Kingdom ever fought, Foreign Secretary?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think we were...
Well, I wonder if you have a view on it.
I think we were right to take the action we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think we're right to be supporting Ukraine in their struggle against Russia, which is a completely unwarranted invasion. But it is no doubt absolutely correct that what Argentina did was a completely unprovoked aggression against the Falkland Islands. And we continue to support the sovereignty and self-determination of the Falkland Islanders.
Grateful for your time. I hope I haven't made you late this morning. Thank you, Liz Truss, Foreign Secretary, appearing here on LBC 7 minutes after 8 late. Let's go to those news headlines.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, senior Church of England bishops say the Rwanda deportation policy is immoral and shames Britain. They've written a letter ahead of the first flight carrying